Hey, beloved, what's up? It's been a minute, hasn't it? God bless you. Thank you for just, yeah, good to not see you, but see you. Praise God. Welcome. Welcome to the Jackie Jackson Ministries Urban Apologetics channel. We're going to have a good time tonight. We're going to get over into some stuff that is going to be an absolute blessing to you. But let me continue to welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight in the man cave, in the manly cave. I'm glad that you're here. Down here where I got all my stuff. I won't do too much. I know people have heard this before, but I really appreciate you joining me today in my special spot where I'm comfortable. So I've got the vanilla pumpkin candle going, and the atmosphere is set, got some good music, because we're going to dive into some things today. All right. Thank you for hanging out with your knowledge junkie. All right. So I can make you the smartest person in the room as it pertains to these topics. So you can learn, you can pick up on things that you haven't heard before. Just want to be a great blessing to you. Let me also do this little public service announcement, and then we will dive into our lesson. There are ways to connect. I have been on WCVG 103.9 and 1320 AM. It'll be 13 years in December. So the Lord has just really blessed, been able to bring you all kinds of topics. And so I want you to check that out. YouTube, which I'm on right now, and on Jackie Jackson Facebook. I want you to like and subscribe. And on Facebook, you can certainly send me all the likes you can. And also, I am on TikTok. And I wanted to put that one up last so you'd have an opportunity to see, exactly where you can find me. There are already a lot of videos up, and videos on Instagram I didn't mention. There are videos up on Instagram. I have 3 Facebook pages, so you can go and check out different things there. All right. So tonight, as we dive into this subject about Project 2025, people have been asking me to deal with this topic. So, and I've been speaking, I spoke at a church last week, and I have another event. Actually, I have 3 more events coming up to speak on this topic. I try in the beginning to make sure that people are very, very clear of my spiritual position. Because as a historian, I'm going to have to tell you some things that are, it's going to be raw. It's going to be real raw. And this is just part 1. And some of the things that I'm going to tell you, I want you to understand what's going on spiritually. Okay, so let's start with this verse here. Jesus says, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another as I have loved you, that you also love one another. By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." God's goal is harmony. He wants us to love each other. It's very important to him, because by that people will know that we are his disciples, and it will draw people to him. So as we look at the off-color side of things, and some people that are wearing Christian labels, it is important for us to understand what God's goal is, how he feels about it. This particular verse that I want to finish this little piece with here, the Bible says we have to guard our heart, because the Bible says, 1 John 3:15, whoever hates his brother is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life abiding in him. If you allow hate to get in your heart, God's got a problem with you. You're putting your eternity on the line. So as I start dealing with some of the tougher things that I'm going to deal with, I need you to remember that as a historian, I'm telling you the story. But I'm not mad at anybody. I'm not getting ready to, I don't know. But it's all in love. But we have to deal with this issue because it is so crucial. And we have to look at the heart of where it is coming from. The stoking of white fear, the stoking of white supremacy, that one group of people, as if God would do that, as if God would make one group of people superior to another. That's pride. That's not God. But it has gotten to a very dangerous point where people actually believe that diversity, us coming together in harmony, is mean chasing down the last white person? Really? Really? There is no place in our country's history where black people have retaliated in that form, where when we've walked together that there has been a problem. That's very important you got to get that part. Love is the key. God is love. He loves everybody. But this mess? No, that's not of God. All right, so let's dive on in a little deeper. Now, one more preface. It is important for you to understand as we go through this process. I'm going to give you a lot of history. I'm going to show you connectors that, it'll be more in our next time together, how we got here with Project 2025. Why it's front and center. Why are they being so blatant? Why? I want you to see a pattern. And so all I'm saying is, I don't want you to remember all of this information I'm getting ready to give you. I'm not asking you to do that. What I am asking you to do is to catch the pattern. All right? You with me? Okay. So, Project 2025, conservative nationalists wish list for the potential second Trump presidency. They weren't organized in the first one, but they're ready now on day one. They've been working on this for 4 years, and they're ready to go. Now, you're going to learn that there are some things that, and I'll get into greater detail, but this group, the Heritage Foundation, is not new. They came into existence in 1973, and I won't go into the greater detail, but I will in the next time, but I just need you to understand, they didn't just show up yesterday, right? And you have Donald Trump saying, Project 2025, I don't know who these people are. I don't know anything about it. I don't want to know anything about it. Well, that's not true. 31 of the 38 people that wrote this thing, as it says, they were either a part of his administration or a part of the transition team. He knows these folks. He's very clear. And if he gets in office, they're going to make sure that this stuff comes to pass. Now, I'm going to do a little bit of back and forth, but you'll be able to follow me. It's not going to be a problem. I want you to get the crux of what this is about first. Then I'm going to show you some pieces in history so you can see these patterns, and I will lace in how it relates to Project 2025. Okay? Thank you, Mom and Dad, for this list. I know you're watching. Higher taxes for working class. Raise the retirement age. Cut Social Security and Medicare. End the Affordable Care Act. That's huge. We're back to pre-existing conditions and all the things that we had before, people not being able to get insured. Eliminate Department of Education. We are going to spend some time on that tonight to eliminate the Department of Education. We are already not being taught all of history. But I want to make sure that there is no way, because there's no Department of Education overseeing it. I'll get to that. I'm just getting excited that you'll be informed. End free discount lunch programs for school. Why? I've taught school. Those programs are huge. When you have kids that come in that have had nothing to eat All of the food might not be the best, but that's better than an empty stomach and you're trying to teach them science or math, English. It's necessary. Very necessary. When the pandemic happened, there were families that needed food, and there were teachers that gathered together by phone and did that. I went to the grocery store on my own when I heard about this family that had just moved into the area. They were students in our school, but they had just moved into the area. They had nothing. Oh my goodness. I went and filled up 2 carts and took it to them. Because during the day, because of the pandemic, kids weren't going to at least get lunch. And there are some families, I'm trying not to I try not to go down these rabbit trails, but there are some families that are so poor that if the student eats lunch that day at school, and I'm talking about something I heard, I was there. If they ate lunch at school, the parent, because they only had so much food, would not get dinner. The child wouldn't get dinner that afternoon because at least they had eaten once that day. You hear what I'm telling you? And they want to take that away. I know a daughter and mother close to the same size would wear the same pair of shoes. The girl would wear them to school, wear them during the day, and give them to her mother when she got home. There are people that are struggling. What logical sense does it make to take that away? That's hate. That ain't God. There ain't no God in that nowhere. Moving on. Ban African American and gender studies in all levels of education. Well, regardless of your position on that, I do think it needs to be studied. Condemn single mothers while promoting traditional families. You can't legislate morality, but you can witness to people. That's going to come up more than once. You can share the gospel with people and change their lives. You can do that. But to try to create legislation that's going to make people act a particular way, condemning them? Come on. Jesus didn't throw anybody away. He gives everybody an opportunity to spend a good life with him, regardless of the mistakes that you've made in the past. No, he don't want you to make the mistakes. Those are sin, clearly. But he doesn't throw you out. Then don't give you make it more expensive to buy a home by increasing mortgage and insurance premiums. Repeal protections for Americans with pre-existing health conditions. We'll deal with some of that. Elimination of the union and worker protections. Why? Why? So there can be more haves so there can be more have-nots than haves. So the rich are taken care of. I'm spending too much time on this. I just wanted to read it to you. In civil rights and DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion protections, and I believe that says government. It's too far away from me to see it. All right. And make sure that you fill the Supreme Court and the lower courts. Donald Trump has already done that. Did you know that I believe it's the appellate court, that he only hired 2 minorities? Only appointed 2 minorities? One is Asian, the other one is Latino. Nobody black. Nobody black. At the top, people that are making decisions for people's lives that will make sure that there is equity in sentencing and things like that. When people are appealing certain things, that nobody black. So if Donald Trump gets back in, everything changes. All right. So now let's do some history. Let's do some history. Because I want you, beloved, to see these patterns, okay? I'm going to try to be concise with some of this. 1676, I know people say slavery began in 1619. Don't disagree with that, any of that at all. But things changed. Now, we've got our first slave, first person that is a slave for life. That has already happened. But in 1676, there were a lot of free blacks that were working together with whites. a man by the name of Nathaniel Bacon had a rebellion of about 500 mixed people, and this rebellion went on for about a year. And at the end of this rebellion, the aristocrats said, what are we going to do that these two groups, now the country's still run by England, what are we going to do if these two groups come together again for something else? So we will create a system, and that system that we will create will put the poor white man just a little bit above the black man. Now note this, okay? You don't have to, I don't want you to take notes. You don't have to remember all this, but understand what I'm saying right here, the system. And so this is what changed. White men, instead of being indentured servants, the poor white man could buy and own property. Couldn't do that before. Now, they're never going to be able to pay it off, but nevertheless, they could feel the sense of ownership. They could testify in court. They could sit on juries. Couldn't do that before. To put them just a little bit above the black man, and at any time the black man would try to rise above his situation, white fear would take over. They would use white fear to stoke the fires, just as they're doing now, to make people feel like there's going to be a loss if there is equality. And that system is called a caste system. All right? Got the book myself. Okay? And I recommend that you get the book. I have it on audio as well as a hard copy of the book. Because that system that was put in place, laws that were changed in 1676, the mentality that was created in that moment is the same thinking that exists today. That's why we're not off topic. Because listen, if you can understand the pattern, then you have an idea what's coming. Now, I won't do it so much in this session, but in the next session, I'm going to show you some stuff that I predicted years before it happened, understanding what I'm showing you now. And so this information about Project 2025, it is important to understand what's going on and what they're planning. But it is also important to understand that there's a pattern to these things. And if you recognize and understand the pattern, okay, let me give you a taste. Shouldn't, because I'm around of time. Let me give you a taste. There would be no Donald Trump without a Barack Obama. Every time there's black progress, there's white fear, and there's a white response, a negative white response. I don't mean all white people are bad. I'm just telling you the story. Every single time somebody as radical as Donald Trump, they would have never accepted him. But because things were radical now that there's been a black president, we had changed things. I predicted the end of Roe v. Wade. Let me say this in advance. What do you think is going to happen if Kamala Harris becomes president of the United States? There's going to be a white response. So let me teach you the pattern. I gave you the end. Let me teach you the pattern. I'll give you more detail when we come back together. But out of this comes chattel slavery. The strength of the slavery movement comes from this, okay? This pattern continues. I know for some of you this is going to be new information, but you need to know. Francis Scott Key, War of 1812. The British are coming back. They're trying to take the United States back so they can rule again. This is after, of course, the Revolutionary War. And he's on a ship, and he writes the Star Spangled Banner. Well, we got to understand who Francis Scott Key is. Francis Scott Key believes in slavery. As a matter of fact, Francis Scott Key believed that anybody that did not believe in slavery, I'm talking about white abolitionists, he believed that they should be executed. So, in the third paragraph of the Star Spangled Banner, you find these words: no refuge could save the hireling and the slave from the terror of flight or the gloom of the grave. What is he saying? Well, there was a group of people that were fighting on the British side. And so he's talking about them, but he's also telling the slaves in the midst of this chaos, if you run away, we're going to find you. This is in the Star Spangled Banner that I'm supposed to sing. And the Star Spangled Banner and the triumph of wave, or the land of the free and the home of the brave. Oh, I got a problem. I have a major problem with it. Because of the heart of the man that wrote it. And what it means for me to sing any portion of that. I ain't anti-American. I love my country. But that's some foolishness to me. And I can't believe that those that decided to make it the national anthem hadn't read the whole thing. I will move on. This is important. So this is the Confederate Constitution. In the Confederate Constitution, they were demanding. Now, there's been some revisionist history, but they were demanding that slavery be able to continue. The Civil War was about slavery, not states' rights. I'll handle that a little bit more in just a second. This is what they wrote it was about. They didn't write it was about states' rights. That's revisionist history. And this is now this is one of the reasons why right now, this is why you have this stuff about this, this is adult time. Taking mothers from their babies was okay. A slave owner that had, 5 or 6 of his friends, there's a true story behind this, that wanted to entertain his friends coming down to the slave quarters and taking a 6-7-year-old girl for them to abuse. They wanted a right to continue that. Now, I'm not going to go off into it, but many of the people that were a part of the slave trade, one of the reasons that they were willing to go and take slaves, because they would be able to have sex, all the sex they wanted. They would divide them up. The captain would take 20, the first mate would take 15, and so on, all the way down the line. Ain't no God in that nowhere. But they wanted that to continue. I mean, we had gotten to the point where there were plantations that were no longer growing cotton. They were just growing people because you couldn't bring slaves into the country. This is what they wanted to be able to continue. This is what they wanted to be able to continue. And these folks are going to church on Sunday. That's the thing that blows me away. And I had somebody say to me, a professor once said to me, well, that was a different time. No, God is still God. And he's somebody that I love and respect, but God is still God. Now, pattern. 75% of the people that fought in the Civil War did not own slaves. 75% of the people that fought in the Civil War did not own slaves. One more time, 75% of the people that fought on the Confederate side did not own slaves. How did you stir them up? They're going to take your jobs. They're going to rape white women. Any of that sound familiar? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Stoking white fear. But again, states' rights, that's revisionist history. The writing about states' rights did not come. Now, states' rights was around, but the writing about it specifically pertaining to the Civil War, that didn't happen until after the Civil War. I have the documents. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? It's revisionist history. It's not the truth. It's not what happened. But in order to maintain supremacy, That's what they did. And so the daughters of the Confederate, let me get past this part real quick. The daughters of the Confederacy, they're the ones that are responsible for the statues that we want taken down and all of that, using revisionist history. We are the only country that I can find, if you know one, tell me, we are the only country that I can find that had a civil war and honored the ones that lost, honors the ones that lost. All right, let's move on to another section. Well, and they want to keep that narrative going. Civil War's over. 13th Amendment, the slaves are free. 14th Amendment, citizenship. That's why in 1964, it's an act. It was already in the Constitution. You need to do what's in the Constitution. Okay? So black people are now citizens. 15th Amendment, the right to vote. How is it ever? In order to, see, black folks were never supposed to be citizens of the United States. You were supposed to be slaves. You were never supposed to have an equal part. So they put a clause in the 13th Amendment that has created a major mess. Neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, sorry, that's a little faulty, except for the punishment of a crime whereof a party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. In other words, if you've committed a crime, you don't have the same citizenship as other people. So what we need to do is we need to arrest you. What we need to do is we need to set up a system. Since we've got this little clause in here, we need to set up a system, and what's called peonage. Still exists today. We have more black men currently incarcerated in prison than were in slavery at any one time. And many of these private prisons are on the New York Stock Exchange. Project 2025 wants to keep all of that going. Okay, and I'll talk to you about the Justice Department. They want to revamp it. Got to keep this going. Got free labor. It was, I mean, I've got a documentary, and I've talked about this on there. There are videos on this on YouTube that you can watch. This documentary was explaining how a foreman comes into town, meets with the sheriff, tells the sheriff, I need 50 laborers, 15 laborers, whatever the number might be. And the sheriff would go and arrest the number that the man needed, loitering, whatever it was. Those men would go to court. Now, because they've been in court, guilty or not, they have a court fee. Because they don't have the money to pay that court fee, they now have to do peonage. They have to work off whatever the debt is or whatever the fine is. And many people died. There's no slavery anymore. Slavery, people were property. They beat you, but they didn't necessarily kill you. Somebody paid $1,200, $1,500 for your black body. Now, so they didn't do that. But now, like the steel companies that were in Alabama and Birmingham, in that area, if you died, they just go get somebody. They send out somebody to go to another town, and they get a bunch of other young people, and they just work you to death. There's some good literature on the topic. Slavery by Another Name. And all this stuff that I'm showing you, not all of it, but most of it, you have to read it prayerfully. It can get you bent out of shape. Okay? Let's move on to another section of this. Let's talk about Reconstruction. Now, I don't know what you've been doing today, how busy you've been or whatever, but I need you to focus because I'm about to share some things with you. I can almost guarantee that some parts of this you are going to have no idea. But, I'm not a Google kind of guy, but you can Google some of this. Meaning research, real research, not this is what somebody's opinion is. They put it on. It might not even be true. But the Reconstruction era was, I call it, the most prolific period in Black history. I wrote about it in my master's thesis. Didn't even feel like I exhausted it. Had to be general because there were so many individuals that were black that accomplished great things that it just weren't enough pages to fill these individual stories. So, I did some individual people, but it was more collective. Here's your first piece. 1868, 3 years after the Civil War ended. The Republicans were a different party then. Things changed around Herbert Hoover. There were discussions about putting Frederick Douglass on the Republican ticket for vice president in 1868. Serious discussions. We would have had a black president long before Barack Obama. Are you hearing me? I'll let that soak in. HBCUs were developed. Fisk University, which I have had the pleasure of going there on a black college tour with younger students. Fisk University was developed in 1866. Yeah, it's 1 year after the Civil War. In the South, we have a black university. 1 year. And they were developing, most of them are developed during the Reconstruction era and after. Just phenomenal blessings, progress happening. Now, this is just a side note of what HBCUs are accomplishing now. Just wanted to get that on the screen. You can pause it, take a look at it later, okay? Now, school systems. There was a group called the Freedmen's Bureau, set up by the government. The Freedmen's Bureau, along with Christian teachers, both black and white, would go into the South to teach, to set up schools, to fund schools. They were raising, $1 million, which in today's, I can't remember, I wrote about it, but $1 million then, that's quite a bit today, for education. There was nobody talking about integrating schools. The black schools were better, right? They weren't walking around with their chest stuck out. They were better. You had older people that would want to look at the lessons the kids had done that day. They work in the field all day and they were learning to read at night. W.E.B. Du Bois wrote about there were older black people that said, I want to be able to read the Bible for myself before I die. Right? But as I'm explaining this to you, whenever there is black progress, there is a pattern. There's going to be white fear. So they started burning down schools. Why? Why do you want these people to be uneducated? Why are you doing this? Fear. Fear. Unrealistic, but fear. February 3rd, which is the 15th Amendment, 1870, February 3rd, 1870, black man gets the right to vote. All kinds of things were going on to prevent that from happening in a legal way. I got one book, I don't have it in front of me, written by Donna Dickerson about the Reconstruction era, where guys are riding on horses, shooting their guns in the air and saying, who dies next, as people are standing in line to cast their vote. Bosses would tell people, if you don't vote this particular way, you'll never work again. And I guess they had ways of finding out how people voted. But regardless of that, regardless of what they were trying to do, we still sent state representatives, federal representatives, Congress, Senate. We had more then, during this period, look it up, than we have now. Let me pop back on for a second. I got something I want to show you real quick. This book has a list in it, How Black is the Gospel. It has a list in it. Now the copies are, this is an old copy, but there are copies of this that look more modern, that list the numbers by state of all of these people, many of them that got murdered for their faith. 96% of them were pastors, preachers. Where's the church? Church was all up in this. Many would lose their lives for their participation in politics, but were willing to take that risk for the freedom and equality for their people. So in 1965, the Voting Rights Act, that wasn't anything new. It had been suppressed by Jim Crow. They want to reverse that. Strap in. It's getting ready to get real. Freedom towns are all black towns. I just lectured about this in Chicago a few months ago. Most people know about, where's my book? They know about Black Wall Street, right? They know about Black Wall Street. They know about Oklahoma. But this is in alphabetical order, and that's just the first list of all black towns, freedom towns that were established. I asked the question early, where are they? Where are they? What happened? Where are they? What happened? There is a system that is in place of oppression, fear that is stoked, white fear that is stoked to make people think somehow they're going to lose if we walk together as God asked us to do. And the design of Project 2025 is to take us back. Look at Texas in this. I always tell people, take a look at Texas. All those towns. Now this is not in the 20th century. This is what black people were able to develop right after the Civil War, or within that, within a 35-year period before we switched over to a new century. All those towns I showed you. Well, what happened? Things that are not in the books. Stories that are not told. Towns that are, and there's more. Here in Cincinnati, where I'm located, I don't know where you're watching this from, but yeah. Cannons being opened on people in the West End area, 1841. So it's not a complete list. So how does all of this, let me make this connector for you with Project 2025? What I just showed you, most people don't know. The towns, the number of people that were in politics, and I'm just being brief, right? I mean, but I've got the materials. Settlements that were right here in Ohio. Settlements in Ohio, but the stores wouldn't give them the seeds necessary to plant their crops and things like that to get them, and then dams were created to go through to destroy black neighborhoods. Dulles Airport is a former black neighborhood. There's an area when you go down 75 in Cincinnati, after you pass Harrison, you get down around 7th Street. It's got a hook in it. That hook went right through the black businesses that were located in that area. What I didn't know is that two of those black businesses, I just learned from my parents about a year ago, were members of my family. So I just showed you some things that you probably had no idea about. Project 2025 wants to eliminate the Department of Education, so you'll never know. It's already not being taught in schools, but you won't even be able to advocate for it to be taught in schools because there'll be no Department of Education. It will not exist. And when you control the narrative, you control the people. When you control the story that's being told, you control the people. And anything that looks like change, brings about white fear. That's what they are. That's what that want to control the story, control you, want to have haves and have-nots, want to make sure that your education is even more thwarted than it is now. And for you to not have the ability, the idea is that the president will have enough power that there's nothing you can do about it. I've only got a few minutes left here. The Klan came into existence around 1865. We got some things that are going on with the Klan, and it went right in the middle of Reconstruction, right in the middle of all the politics, the growth in black politics, the growth in black education, right in the middle of all of those kinds of things. We're going to have a negative response. See, I don't need you to remember everything. I just need you to see the pattern. At every turn, if you see any, I don't care what it is, it has always been the same. So you know what's coming. But here's a story they weren't told right here. They treated black people, they got a job, taught them a skill. All of this revisionist history. That's what Project 2025 wants to do. Lynching. Again, during slavery, nobody was lynching anybody. It was after slavery to keep order. Right? From 1882, to 1968, 4,743 lynchings occurred in the United States, according to the records maintained by the NAACP. Other accounts include the Equal Justice Initiative extensive report on lynching, count slightly different numbers, but it's impossible to know for certain how many lynchings occurred because there was no formal tracking. Many historians believe the true number is underreported. Okay, this is important. And what is also important is that there were over 1,000 white people that were lynched, that were killed, trying to protect black lives. They must be enjoying heaven right now because they were being godly. March of 2022, it took 100 years. It took 100 years to get the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act passed. 100 years. Project 2025 wants to take us back. I'll talk about the police next time, that there would be impunity for them. Why? All because of stoking white fear. Let me give you this last piece I'll go kind of quick with this. My time is gone here. The ghettos are not a choice that black people made. 1880, which is where I date the end of Reconstruction, and so does W.E.B. Du Bois. I'll show you the book now. He dates it the same as I do. You'll find a lot of literature that will say 1877. It's not my date. This is when things really changed. The troops, Rutherford B. Hayes, there was a runoff election. Basically, there's a tie. He told the South, if you will elect me, I'll pull the troops out of the South. See, prior to that time, troops were in the South protecting black folks as much as they could, even though there were still some negative things that happened. But he said, you pull the troops out. I'll pull the troops out and leave the reconstruction of the South to the South. He did that. Lynchings went off the chain immediately. When people started complaining, you're killing people down there, they said they're raping white women. Just this was the response. Once there was an opportunity to put them in their place, this is where Jim Crow was birthed. All of that is changing. So what they did, what Rutherford B. Hayes did after that was he created slums. He created ghettos. Okay, sorry you can't hardly see the word slums, but he created slums where black people had to live. Redlining, all of that stuff, but he created areas where they had to live. Some of them are called projects. Some of you that are listening may have grown up in the projects or something like the projects. And they had these all over the country. The infrastructure was poor. Books in schools could be 2 years behind. Crime was allowed to exist to a degree. Police could do whatever they wanted to, even more so with impunity. And it's horrible now. But that's where the ghettos came from. So there'd be this uneducated, violent cesspool of people that will never rise above their condition because they don't even know what's different. All you needed was a few generations. In 1835, it's actually when W.E.B. Du Bois, when the book you see there, when it came out, he was describing the ghettos of 1880 and saying that in his time, in 1935, I don't know what I said first, I may have misquoted myself, but he was saying in 1935 that nothing had changed. If you took those dates out, it might as well be 2024 because the system that was put in place worked. The authors of 2025 want to continue that. Let's work this list and we're done. They want to take away reproductive freedom. Use the presidency for revenge on Trump's political and personal enemies. Well, he's been given the immunity necessary to be able to do that. All he's got to do is get back in. Termination of the Constitution. Trump said if he gets back in, you don't have to worry about him voting again because he's king. Consolidate power in the Oval Office, meaning that as far as the legislative branches, as far as that is concerned, everything goes through the president. He'll have more power to do whatever he wants to do. Guts democratic checks and balances for the president. Gives handouts to the ultra wealthy, which will be paid for by working families, and much, much more. All right. I appreciate you being with me today. Please set your device for this Wednesday. Set an alarm. I did a radio show just that was very impactful, and there were people that were telling me, not that it was first time to have it, but people were telling me, hey, I remembered one day and didn't remember. Set your device so that it goes off, at 7:55 on Wednesday, so that we can continue this conversation. And believe me, it's going to be deeper because we're moving more into the modern era, and you will see that the patterns will continue of black progress means a white response. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for watching me here on Urban Apologetics.